I have a V12 Bentley.
Your biological dad, poor dad with his PhD. What's your definition of leadership?
Unite and focus. I got a piece of paper. I said, that means you're an idiot. Show me your financials. My license plate on my car, I have a V12 Bentley. I do have an EV also. The V12 is 1.9 GPA. I go down the streets.
There is a resentment in academia towards
The rich.
but also there's a kind, this goes back a long time. There's a sort of like the merchant class has always been reviled.
Yes,
Why do you think that is? It seems almost like a deeply human quality, because it's not just here in America, it's throughout history.
Well, we have different values, we all have different values. So for the academic types who are generally, in school, I used to call them nerds. I was a surfer.
I was a nerd. Back off.
The surfers were cool, I was flunking out of school, but we were cool. And they're going, well, I'm going to go to good school. I said, good, I'm going to be surfing. It's just values. I still got into Naval Academy. I'm not stupid, but I'm also not that naive. So to go to military school, you have to be mental, emotional, physical, spiritual.
In America, we lead the world in fatherlessness. 1 in 4
What?
in fatherlessness.
Yes.
1 in 4
Thank you for saying that.
students. 1 in 4 kids are living in a home without a biological step or adoptive father. You had 2 dads. You had your biological dad, poor dad with his PhD, and rich dad,
Yes.
a mentor, friend. So you were rich. You were doubly rich on that score.
Thank you.
What do you say?
But that's why your program is perfect name.
It's a big part of why we do it.
Yes. But fathers are not carrying the load today. I meet so many young women today who say, I can't find a man. They're TikTok dancers now.
You're boomering up here, Robert.
Marines have an attitude problem.
But what is your advice for young men who don't have the benefit of having a dad to impart these things? Obviously you're out there, you've been out there for a long time preaching this gospel. But if I'm a young man and I'm stuck.
That's a great question.
What should my body do first so that my mind can...
Very good question. Because when I realized, this is what happened. I grew up in Hawaii. My father's head of education. On one side of the street is a kid, schools, the elementary school for labor union kids. It was called Union School. So the kids that went there were union members. Their fathers were either Portuguese, Filipino, Chinese, Korean, like that. Directly, less than 20 yards across the street was Riverside School, the school for the rich kids. So their fathers owned the plantations that the union kids worked for. I talk about a cycle farm. I'm going. So for some reason, my father didn't cheat, but I got into the rich kids' school. So I'm sitting there for the first time in 9 years old going, how come they're poor and we're rich? These guys are, what's the difference? That was the question. So then I'm in Sunday school and flunking out of Sunday school too. I'm sitting like this and the teacher says, why were the 3 wise men wise? I raised my hand and said, she goes, why? Because they were rich. She goes, and in church, the love of money is the root of all evil, right?
Yeah.
So when I
But it is the love of money. It's not money. People make that mistake.
I understand, but it's the cop out for being poor. I all know the game. I'm not idiot. So I sat there going, she goes, I said, why do you say they're rich? I'm like, gold, frankincense, myrrh, that costs money. And she goes, how do you know that? I said, well, I study money. I do study money. And she goes, that didn't make them rich. I said, well, what did? And then she said the magic words. They sought the best teacher. So, Christians, Jesus Christ. Buddhism, it's Buddha. And I went, so my job as a kid is to seek the best teacher? She goes, yes. And so I'm in a rich kid's school across the street of the union kids, laborers' kids. And I went looking for a teacher. And that's when I found my rich dad. Was my best friend's father in the same school.
One of the things.
So please hear me. Seek your teachers. And YouTube and what you guys are doing, you're giving the world access to millions of teachers. So I think YouTube's good and bad to it. But seek out the best teachers.
One of the things for a lot, and I have a 19-year-old son, and he's doing great, but his peers, a lot of them, when they do that, they say, okay, I don't believe the nonsense I'm being told. I'm being told I'm toxic and this and that, communism. I'm like, I don't like any of that. So they go online and they encounter characters like Andrew Tate and others who are essentially pitching them. It's not all bad what they say. Some of it's helpful, but some of it's just kind of get rich quick scam artistry.
Correct.
How should someone recognize when that's what's going on? Because if you don't have that knowledge and you're looking for your first teacher and they turn out to be some Ponzi scheme bozo, you might not know that they're a Ponzi scheme bozo. Oh, they got a Bugatti. They're like the three wise men, but just with Bugattis and harems and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're sort of like a demonic.
Well, it's pretty. If it's too good to be true, it's probably fake, But the best podcast I've ever done, one of those get rich quick guys came on my show. He was hoping that my audience, would infiltrate his audience and all this stuff. And he was giving what I thought was the worst advice. And he's pretty famous to me to this day. He's still up there. I took him on, So you SOB, I shoot him out. I thought it was the worst thing I'd ever done. And to this day, people come up to me and say, that was the best podcast ever. Because I took him on.
What's your definition of leadership?
You should be able to unite and focus a group. King's Point, the school I went to, #1 school in leadership. The first word we learned at King's Point, mission. Mission is spiritual. What are you here to do? Then your job as a leader is to unite, focus that energy.
I've run small businesses for a little over a decade, and this has been maybe the biggest lesson I've learned over that time is having a vision and mission. If you're trying to lead an organization, ends up being the most important thing you end up doing.
Your job is unite in spirit. So, that's why I say when I came back from Vietnam, I got spit on and hit by rotten eggs. And they just didn't see, they said we called us killers, which we did. But when your friend doesn't come home, we're a carrier. And we're sitting there and go, what happened to him? I said, did you see him go down? I said, no, we didn't see him go down. And they don't come back. It's the most empty feeling. So there was so many nights I'll be on my carrier, be sitting on the bow of the ship, and that's when you get closer to God. You go, why am I still here? Why is he gone? So the Vietnam Wall was a good thing in D.C. I go there and I would say goodbye to my friends. But then to come home and get spit on, hit with rotten eggs, my commanding officer said it the best. He said, gentlemen, we fought for the right for them to do that to us. And what? That's freedom of expression. We fought for that right. That's spirit. That's mission. That's leadership. We could have just broke out our guns and shot them all.